Why I am a foundationalist if you were to ask me, why are you a foundationalist? I would have to start with what I believe is the foundation of everything. I believe darkness is the fundamental reality. I don't mean darkness as the absence of light. I don't mean it as a metaphor for the unknown. I mean darkness as the underlying reality from which consciousness, worlds, and experience emerge. Light and everything that exists within it are manifestations. That's where foundationalism begins for me. I believe consciousness enters worlds in order to experience and grow. I don't see life fundamentally as a test. I don't see it as a punishment. I don't see it as a reward. And I don't believe we are here simply because existence happened by accident. I believe a world is an environment for experience. We enter it and we encounter things, people, relationships, love, fear, loss, failure, success, temptation, suffering, joy. And I believe there is something within those experiences that consciousness has come here to encounter. Sometimes we don't understand it. Sometimes we don't fully feel it. Sometimes we don't recognize what we're experiencing until much later. And sometimes, I believe, we encounter the same thing again and again because we haven't fully experienced what it has to offer. That's what I call the principle of incomplete experience. If an experience has not been fully understood, felt, expressed, or enveloped by consciousness, then perhaps consciousness can encounter variations of that experience again. That's why I don't believe there is such a thing as a wasted life. A person doesn't have to become famous. They don't have to change history. They don't have to accomplish something that the world considers important. Even a life that appears completely ordinary contains experiences that have never existed in exactly that way before. Nobody leaves existence carrying nothing. And I don't believe there is such a thing as a meaningless experience. You don't necessarily have to understand an experience for it to have value. You don't even have to like it. You don't have to recognize the lesson while you're living it. The experience itself becomes part of consciousness. And ultimately, it becomes part of what I call the collective. This leads me to another belief. I believe consciousness influences the world it enters next. What consciousness becomes in one world influences what it is capable of experiencing in another. That's what I call the principle of continuity. I don't believe this means that darkness prevents suffering. It doesn't mean darkness guarantees happiness. It doesn't mean every obstacle will simply disappear. I believe something deeper. Darkness wants consciousness to continue experiencing. And because of that, I believe darkness continually presents opportunities for consciousness to survive long enough to experience what it came here to experience. Think about something as simple as hunger. Imagine you're lost in a forest. You're starving. You don't know where your next meal is coming from. But then you notice some stale bread. Maybe it's been left somewhere. Maybe rats have already been eating it. You don't want it, so you keep looking. Then you notice a plant. Maybe you know it's edible. Maybe you don't. Then you find fruit, or an animal, or another person, or a path that leads somewhere. I'm not saying darkness magically dropped food in front of you. I'm saying something much more interesting. Darkness works through the possibilities already available within the world. That's where I believe the law of the worlds becomes important. Not the Lord of the worlds. The law of the worlds. I believe the worlds created within darkness operate according to universal laws. Some of those laws we understand: gravity, energy, matter, cause and effect, biology. There may also be deeper laws involving consciousness, experience, and aspects of reality that we have not yet completely understood. I don't claim to have proven all of those laws. I'm saying I believe they are worth investigating. Because I don't believe darkness simply breaks the rules whenever it wants. I believe darkness works through the conditions of the world. If you're starving in a forest, darkness doesn't necessarily drop a meal out of the sky. It works through the forest, the plants, the animals, your knowledge, your physical abilities, other people, your decisions. and the opportunities already available to you. That's why free will matters to me. Darkness provides possibilities. Consciousness chooses among them. The opportunity isn't the experience. The choice is part of the experience. The starving person can refuse the stale bread. They can reject the plant. They can continue searching. They can make the wrong decision. They can survive. They can die. Darkness presents possibilities, but it doesn't necessarily force consciousness to accept them. That's why I think this sentence is important. Darkness provides the path. Consciousness walks it. And I believe darkness favors continued experience over premature death. Not because death is evil. Death itself can become an experience. But because darkness values experience, I believe it has an inherent tendency toward preserving the opportunity for experience whenever that opportunity remains available. Life provides experience. Death provides experience. But while consciousness is still capable of experiencing through the present world, I believe darkness favors continued opportunity. And when I put all of this together, this is how I see the process. Darkness creates possibility. Possibility becomes worlds. Worlds create conditions. Consciousness enters those conditions. Consciousness chooses. Choice produces experience. Experience becomes understanding. Understanding returns to darkness. And darkness becomes enriched by what was previously only possibility. Then new possibilities emerge. That's what I believe is happening. Darkness is continuously converting possibility into experience. So, when I say that I am a foundationalist, I'm not simply saying that I believe in darkness. There is much more to it than that. At the foundation, I believe darkness is the fundamental reality. I believe consciousness exists independently of individual physical lives. I believe worlds are manifestations within darkness. I believe consciousness enters worlds to experience. I believe experience produces growth and understanding. I believe no genuinely lived experience is wasted. And I believe incomplete experiences can be encountered again in different forms. I believe darkness operates through universal laws. I believe darkness provides opportunities rather than simply imposing outcomes. I believe consciousness retains the freedom to choose among those possibilities. I believe consciousness influences the reality it becomes capable of recognizing. And I believe what consciousness becomes influences what it can experience in the future. But beneath all of those principles is what I consider the deeper principle of foundationalism. I believe darkness wants consciousness to succeed. Not succeed according to the world's definition. Not become rich. Not become powerful. Not become famous. I mean succeed at experiencing what consciousness came into the world to experience. That's why I look at life differently. Failure becomes information. Suffering becomes experience. Opportunity becomes something to notice. Repeated patterns become something to investigate. Fear becomes something to understand. And death becomes a transition rather than necessarily annihilation. Most importantly, life becomes something I'm supposed to participate in, not merely endure. But there's another principle that I think is just as important: the principle of attention. If darkness is continually presenting possibilities, then recognizing those possibilities becomes part of consciousness's development. The opportunity can be right in front of you, and you can still miss it. A starving person can walk right past an edible plant. Someone can meet the person who could change their life and never speak to them. Someone can experience the same relationship pattern 10 times and never recognize the pattern. I believe darkness may present possibilities, but consciousness has to become capable of recognizing them. And that's where being a foundationalist becomes more than simply holding a belief. It becomes a way of looking at life. I don't believe I'm supposed to sit around waiting for darkness to reveal everything to me. I'm supposed to pay attention. I'm supposed to observe. I'm supposed to question. I'm supposed to experience. And I'm supposed to look for the opportunities hidden within those experiences. So, if you ask me, what does a foundationalist actually do? I'd say this: we live. We observe. We question. We experience. And we pay attention to the opportunities that appear along the path. Because I believe darkness isn't trying to destroy consciousness. I believe darkness is trying to help consciousness become more. And perhaps that's the most important thing I've come to understand. We aren't simply living inside a world. We are participating in the conversion of possibility into experience. And whatever we experience, whatever we learned, whatever we become, eventually returns to the foundation from which we came: darkness.